It's evening. It's evening on the very same day that we were just talking about. And there is a train car, a private train car, that is racing along the train tracks through District Epsilon, heading to a particular location. On the train is the newly appointed district manager of District Epsilon. His name is Terrence Bell, and he is an ENTJ. Terrence Bell has been rising through the ranks of the Grand Depot at an unprecedented rate. He has curried favor with who he's needed to curry favor with, and otherwise making as many strategic moves as was necessary to as quickly but cautiously jump from rank to rank within the Grand Depot. And he was recently able to win the position of district manager over District Epsilon. He is replacing the last district manager, who was removed rather unceremoniously after the incident where a town in District Epsilon, a family from the town, was found in the possession of translated ancient texts that talked about technology and engineering. And this was enough to scare the conservative factions within the government. They completely went ballistic, and this was one of their attempts to take action. They immediately removed the district manager because these texts had been being read for at least 2 years at this point, and the fact that this had gone undetected from him was absolutely unacceptable to the government. So they got a new person in there, and they decided that their best pick was their new darling, the claimed alleged conservative who has risen up through the ranks, namely Terrence Bell, the ENTJ. He knows who he needs to impress in order for him to get to the top, but he also knows that the very people he needs to impress would not be very impressed if they knew why he was going to the top, or that he even was going to the top. He had plans, and he knew that they would not be happy about it. But no matter. Terrence Bell is on the train. He's looking out the window. He's looking at the purple trees of District Epsilon, the red grass, the white sand and rock, and he sees his own face superimposed on the landscapes, as though to represent his new position and all of the weight that it carried. He had to tread carefully. The conservatives had appointed him over District Epsilon, and they expected him to do what he had shown he was very good at doing, namely cracking down on people who were towing the line too much in regard to the blue metal, benzamite. He was very good at that. He was very good at following the letter of the law, and he was very good at getting other people to do it, even if he, in his heart, ultimately disagreed. This was necessary evil. He looks over to his right. He's not alone on the train car. He is accompanied by his own newly appointed assistant, and who he knows might either be a brilliant move on his part or his first serious misstep. Only time will tell. This man is named Richter Godfrey, and he is an ESTP. Technically, in the paperwork, he is addressed as the secretary and scribe for Terrence Bell. This is hilarious. Everybody knows that he is not working as the secretary and scribe, because when you appoint somebody who is a war hero and is 6 feet tall and is known to be able to shoot men through both eye sockets with double pistols from 150 feet away, given he doesn't have too bad of a hangover, when you appoint a guy like that to do paperwork, everybody knows he's not really doing paperwork. He's there to be a bodyguard and an enforcer. That, at least, is what everybody assumes Terrence Bell appointed him for, but he had his own reasons. Only a year ago, maybe not at the level of a war, but certainly a very serious civil conflict, mainly centered around the capital and the nearer districts. It was caused by an attempt at revolution and coup, violent and direct, led by Josephine Arrow, an ESTJ. Josephine Arrow would probably be described as something of a libertarian anarchist, very much against the one single government, and is sick and tired of the Grand Depot, has long been a radical influence on the government, and for some reason, somewhat unexpectedly, began a revolution, fighting for their independence, trying to bring down the Grand Depot. All of the details aren't totally important right now. What is important is that this greatly exacerbated the already growing tensions between the more conservative factions in the government and what you might call the liberal or progressive factions. Probably progressive is a better way to put it. Because Josephine Arrow was obviously supposed to be more sympathetic to the progressive factions, though Josephine Arrow was also very angry, violent, rude, frustrating, though for some people, absolutely heroic and saying what everybody was thinking. And by the way, this is the current state in which Benjamin somewhat naively put out his pamphlet, which of course is now lumped together with the, quote, progressives. The conservatives, meanwhile, are losing their minds, and one of their new darlings was a lower rank soldier named Richter Godwin, the ESTP. Richter Godwin gained a great deal of notoriety for his bravery in the civil conflicts. He saved a lot of people. He killed a lot of people on Josephine Arrow's side. And after his entire platoon was killed in an explosion except for him, and he actually was able to walk away and shoot several of Josephine Arrow's people, he was instantly high promoted. And from there, using the new media coverage, as it were, he became basically a provocateur. Very angry and attacking Josephine Arrow in all of the ways that, whether they were very good arguments or not, were certainly satisfying in a vengeful sort of way for the conservatives. So they loved him. And he was genuine. He was a genuine patriot. He didn't really have a strict agenda. He just hated what Josephine Arrow stood for, and he knew how to speak. Well, in any case, everybody on the conservative side loved Godwin and wanted to get him into a higher position within the Grand Depot as soon as possible. And who was able to grab that opportunity but the foresighted Terrence Bell, who knew as soon as he saw the reaction to Godwin and his rallying speeches and his violent humor, if he was going to curry favor with people, then he needed to side with Godwin. The only problem being that Terrence Bell was secretly an enormous fan and sympathizer with Josephine Arrow. Terrence Bell did not like the Grand Depot. He did not like the government. The reasons for this, we can discuss a bit more later. But for now, all that's important is that, really, for the past year and a half or so, that he has been climbing up the social ladder. It has been his ambition to carry out what Josephine Arrow had failed to do a year and a half ago, but to do it in a more indirect, less violent, and hopefully thereby much more successful way. Josephine Arrow had tried to take over the government directly, attack, get people on your side, and they had ultimately been crushed and driven out. It was presumed that Josephine Arrow was dead, though Terrence Bell knew from looking at the records that that was far from absolutely certain. He wanted to get to the top of the Grand Depot, and after currying favor from the conservatives for long enough, after playing their game essentially undercover for long enough, he was going to essentially completely double-cross them and use his positions of power to begin taking complete control and changing everything. This was, in very bare bones, his plan. The problem was Godwin. People had begun talking, because of Terrence Bell's very quick rise through the government, that he was fake. Terrence Bell was not traditionally charismatic, as we might think of it. He certainly was charismatic when actually doing things, but he was not very good at presenting himself charismatically. He had a bit of a nervous twitch with one of his eyes, and he tended to step back and forth on his feet. Godwin could be his mouthpiece. Godwin also could easily curry favor for him, because now you had the conservative power couple, Godwin and Bell, now placed over District Epsilon. They start cracking down on people. The conservatives will worship them if they can get it working right. But the problem, as I mentioned before, is that if ever Godwin found out, or if any of the conservatives, but especially Godwin, Terrence Bell knew, Godwin would not hesitate, would not even think about going to prison or anything before he shot Terrence Bell in the face for his treason. Godwin was a dangerous man. What was Terrence Bell's first move? They were heading in this train car to a particular village. You've probably already guessed it. Terrence Bell knew that if he was going to be able to leap up higher, he was going to have to continue currying favor with the conservatives, and particularly with one of them. This overseer's name was Francisca Carnegie, an ESFJ, who one of their prevailing arguments against Josephine Arrow was her violence. And she also is not a fan at all of Benjamin Whistler's new pamphlet. She believes that pamphlets like this, part of the reason that she detests it so much is precisely because she finds it so convincing. She thinks that Benjamin Whistler is a brilliant writer, knows exactly what he's doing, knows how to communicate things to the crowd, but he, unfortunately, like so many who she has seen, is far too philosophical for his own good. He's far too forward-looking and therefore far too naive. He's very convincing, but his actual ideas that he's trying to convince people of are dangerous, odious, sophistical, naively partial to his own point of view. He does not see the full picture of why we have these superstitions in place or why these things need to be together. And in any case, Francisca just does not like having the boat rocked from underneath her. Now, she has not commanded any action. But Terrence Bell knows that if he were to find some kind of dirt on Benjamin, then that would be one of the best and quickest ways to get into Francisca's favor. Francisca is very hesitant about Bell and is the most hesitant out of everybody. But Francisca also has some of the best connections up and down the social ladder within the Grand Depot. Francisca is very social. People like Francisca think Francisca is one of the most moral people they've ever met. And if Terrence Bell can get one of the most moral people have ever met on his side, then he'll be doing pretty darn good. So what is he going to do? Why? He's going into the countryside of District Epsilon, and he's going to pay a visit to Benjamin. And even if he has to plant evidence without Godwin realizing it, he's going to get Benjamin arrested. He's going to take care of him, so that he can show Francisca that he means business and get Francisca on his side, make her wildest dreams come true politically, so that he can accomplish what he needs to. The train is speeding through. It's speeding right for Thornleaf, the village where Benjamin lives.